Stop. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing right now, stop. What I'm about to say isn't for everyone listening. It's meant specifically for you. Something happened in your life this morning. You may not have the words to describe the exact nature of it, and maybe you can't even explain why you woke up with a different weight or a clarity that wasn't there yesterday. But something inside you changed, and I came here just to give that change a name. You didn't find this message by accident. This meeting is an intersection point that was already marked on your timeline. By the end of this moment, you will recognize the 5 clear signs that have been showing up in your routine and understand what they actually mean about your next step. You will understand the exact reason why your effort, though intense, seemed unable to open the doors you were hoping for. And more importantly than that, you will receive a revelation about your own identity. The one, I believe, is the root cause of why you were drawn to listen right now. Stay with me until the end, because every layer we peel back reveals what was hidden beneath the noise of your routine. You've been feeling an exhaustion that sleep can't fix. It's a weariness that lives in your soul, coming from years of trying to force results that always seemed just out of reach. You've noticed that the places you used to go and the conversations that once brought you comfort now feel hollow, almost as if you were speaking a language no one around you understands. There's a growing sense that you no longer belong in the very environments you built. You look at your achievements, your projects, your life, and you feel like all of it was just the staging ground for something that doesn't have a name yet. Many times, you wake up in the dead of night at the exact same hour, sensing a presence or a call that fades away when the sun comes up. You've seen repeated numbers in unexpected places, felt sudden waves of emotion with no obvious cause, and notice that your intuition is sharper than ever, anticipating events before they physically show up. What you've been living through isn't a breakdown, even though it looks like one. What you're going through is a recalibration. You are being removed from an old frequency so you can tune into a vibration that demands you be clean of all the expectations others have placed on your shoulders. The act of typing those 3 numbers is your way of saying yes to what is changing in your life. It's your first agreement, your first affirmation that you recognize the transition you are going through. Type 888. And then immediately come back here so we can continue. What you've been calling failure, delay, or stagnation was actually the building of an invisible foundation. You thought you were wasting time when in reality you were being prepared to carry the weight of the mission that is coming. All during that time, you operated like someone trying to navigate a stormy sea using a map drawn by people who never left dry land. You were trying to apply your potential onto paths that were designed for people with a much smaller vision than yours. That's the pattern. Your hunger was legitimate, but the place where you tried to feed it didn't have the nutrients to sustain the size of your calling. Picture yourself now as a gardener of silence. You spent years tending a piece of ground that looked barren, watering seeds that wouldn't sprout, pulling weeds that kept coming back. The world looked at your field and saw nothing, criticizing your slowness or your lack of visible results. But you weren't failing. You were creating the soil. You were preparing the roots. There is a season of germination that is completely invisible to people passing by on the outside, and you were called to be the guardian of that season. Your patience wasn't weakness. It was spiritual discipline. You were trained to trust the promise before you saw the harvest, and that is exactly why, when your time comes, you won't be knocked down by success. You already learned to live in the dark, so the light won't blind you. What you are feeling right now, that urgency to align, is the signal that the gardener has finished the work of preparation. What you spent your whole life trying to build with your hands is about to be handed to you as fruit, not as a reward for effort, but as an inheritance of faithfulness. You stop trying to convince the world of your worth, and it's in that exact moment, when you give up the performance, that your true calling begins to reveal itself. Let this declaration mark the moment you stop striving and start receiving. Type those words now and then come straight back to me. Do you realize that your productivity was never about doing more, but about being who you were designed to be? Your relentless search for answers was just an attempt to find the map that was already stored inside you. Your return is not to a new life, but to your original life, the one that was designed before you accepted the limitations imposed by fear and the need for others' approval. Now you must begin to see each of your days as an exercise in presence, not as an exercise in achievement. Productivity is the byproduct of an aligned spirit, not the goal of a tired spirit. If this message confirmed what your spirit was already whispering, let your like be your wordless amen. Don't see it as a numerical indicator, but as a gesture of agreement, a silent seal that what was named here is the truth you were waiting to hear. In just a few moments, we're going to consolidate everything that has been awakened. But first, I want you to look outside yourself. There is someone in your life, a person you know, who needs to hear exactly what was said here. It's someone who has been working silently, carrying a burden no one else notices, someone whose face came to your mind while I was talking about the gardener and the waiting. Send this content to that person now. Do it not as someone recommending entertainment, but as someone handing over a key. You were the vehicle, and now you are the messenger. You spent years believing your tiredness was a sign of failure. You looked around and saw others moving forward while you seemed stuck in a cycle of endless preparation. But I need you to understand a truth that will reorganize everything you've lived through up to now. Your effort was not a detour. That effort, that exhausting dedication, that sweat that no one saw, it was actually invisible training. You weren't being punished by the delay. You were being forged by resistance. It's like the athlete who trains with extra weight, so that on competition day, the movement feels natural. You were carrying weights most people couldn't handle, and that is exactly why, when your time finally comes, you won't be crushed by the weight of responsibility or the height of the flight. You learn to live in the dark, learning to trust your own intuition when nothing external gave you guarantees, and so now the light of the new season won't blind you. What you feel now, that urgency to align, is not anxiety. It is the signal that the gardener of silence has finished the work that needed to be done in the soil of your heart. Picture a vast garden where the surface looks dry and lifeless. While the world demands that you produce instant flowers, the gardener of silence is down below, where no one sees, nourishing the roots, strengthening the structure, and preparing the ground for growth that won't be seasonal but permanent. He cultivates what hasn't sprouted yet to make sure that when the sun hits, nothing will be able to dry up what you built. What you spent your whole life trying to force with your hands is, at this very moment, being handed to you as an inheritance of faithfulness. Type those 3 words now with all the clarity your spirit has reached, and then, without losing the rhythm, come straight back to me, because we still have a lot to align. You are beginning to see, perhaps for the first time with total clarity, that your productivity was never about doing more, about exhausting your days on tasks that didn't have your name written on them. Your productivity, at the level you are entering now, is about being who you were designed to be from the very start. Your relentless search for answers in the outside world was just an attempt to find the map that was already stored inside you, pulsing like a compass you ignored because you were afraid it would point to a lonely path. Your return is not to a new life made of masks and fresh goals, but to your original life, the one that was designed before you accepted the limitations imposed by fear and the need for others' approval. Real productivity is the byproduct of an aligned spirit, not the goal of a tired spirit trying to compensate for a lack of purpose with an excess of motion. You are not here to prove anything to anyone. You are here to allow the seed that the gardener cultivated in silence to finally break through the surface. It is a transition that requires you to let go of the old tools, the ones that serve to build what was small, so you can hold what is big. And all of it begins with the recognition that you no longer need to run. You only need to remain. There is a stillness that accompanies authority, and it is in that stillness that you will dwell for the years ahead, watching things happen not because you forced them, but because you allowed them to manifest through your permission to be who you are. The acceptance of your chosen identity is the final step to stop seeking and start manifesting, turning every day into evidence of what was, in secret, consolidated. If what was named here found an echo in the deepest part of your story, if the recognition that you are a gardener of silence brought a relief you haven't felt in years, let your wordless amen happen now. I'm not talking about a metric gesture or anything the world uses to measure relevance. I'm talking about a seal of deep agreement, the silent gesture of someone who recognizes that the truth has been spoken and the path has finally been revealed. Let your wordless amen be the record that you are no longer operating from the need to be seen by people, but from the certainty that you have already been seen by something greater. It is how you seal the commitment to your own truth, letting your silence speak louder than any explanation you ever tried to give about your life. Take a deep breath now, because at this very instant your spirit is preparing for what comes next. There is someone on your journey, a specific person whose face just came to your mind, who desperately needs to receive this clarity. You know exactly who it is. It is that person who has been working harder than anyone around them, but keeps seeing doors stay closed, as if there were an invisible lock in their way. It is someone carrying a weariness that isn't physical, a soul weariness, someone living in forced quiet, maintaining a posture of strength, while inside they are waiting for a word that makes sense. That person doesn't need advice. They need a reminder that their waiting is also training. Send this message to them. Don't do it as someone recommending content. Do it as someone handing over a key. Before we move on to the final unfolding, we need to consolidate the place from which you speak and from which you listen. What you have lived through up to now was not a wrong turn. It was the preparation for the authority you are about to take on. Type slowly. Feel every letter, every space between the words, as if you were signing your own destiny. It is not a request, not a vague hope. It is the assumption of your identity. The agreement that formed between your ear and the truth that was revealed here is what will sustain your next steps. By typing these words, you are declaring to your own subconscious that the season of doubt is over and that the season of authority, grounded in your chosen identity, has just begun. Let your spirit align with this declaration as your fingers do the work of fixing what has already been established. You are committed, you are commissioned, you are sent. Each of these statements is not just a title, it is a function you take on in the world from today forward. You are committed to the truth that now pulses in your chest, the truth that no longer allows you to settle for less than your essence. You are commissioned to carry this light into places where the darkness of doubt still tries to dominate, being the beacon others are searching for without knowing that what they seek is what you have already found. And you are sent, not to chase after results, but to inhabit the place where results come to you, because you are no longer a servant of haste, but a master of manifestation. Your calling is not a task to be completed. It is a state of being that you now sustain, with the naturalness of someone who has finally found their center. Everything you lived through, every fall, every sleepless night, every moment of misunderstanding, was only the soil being prepared so that this authority could sprout. You are no longer on the sidelines. You now occupy the center of your own existence, and that occupation is what changes the atmosphere of everything you touch. From now on, your movement is expansion, not survival. Your speech is instruction, not explanation. Your walk is purpose, not search. You have nothing left to prove to the world because what you carry inside you is proof itself that the gardener of silence always knew what he was doing with your life. The time for hiding behind false humility and doubt is over. The time for making yourself small to fit into spaces never meant for your greatness has also come to an end. You are ready. Not because you prepared yourself, but because you allowed the transformation to happen while you simply existed in the right place, at the right time, with your heart open enough to receive the truth that set you free. The clarity that now floods your vision is not the result of chance, but the outcome of a continuous refining that you went through without understanding. Many times, you felt like an instrument that needed to be tuned by invisible hands, going through pressures that seemed excessive, almost unbearable, but that were actually preparing the resonance of your soul for a higher frequency. Your effort was not a strategic failure, it was rigorous training of the spirit. You were being forged so you would not break under the weight of the authority that has been granted to you. While the world chased shortcuts and instant gratification, you, in silence, cultivated depth. You are the gardener who waits patiently beneath the soil, where no one else can see the seed germinating. The garden you tend is not made of appearances, it is made of roots. And it is right there in the depth of the roots that your strength becomes unquestionable. So when the tiredness tries to reclaim the space that has already been taken from it, remember that your waiting was not lost time, but time of consolidation. You are no longer running after results. You are allowing existence itself to adjust to your new state of being. The productivity that once seemed like your only North Star now loses its meaning in the face of the simple and powerful presence you radiate. You stop trying to convince the world of your worth because you finally understood that your worth does not depend on external approval, but on the internal confirmation that has already been permanently established. This is the freedom you sought so long. A freedom that needs no permission to occupy the place that, from the very beginning, was already yours by birthright. Feel how the air flows more freely now that you have let go of the ropes that tied your potential to others' expectations. There is no longer any need to perform or to explain yourself, because the truth about who you are needs no speeches. It manifests in the way you walk, in the way you listen, and in the way you decide, without any wavering, the direction your life will take from here on. The training is over. What remains now is the natural unfolding of what was carefully prepared during all that time of silence. You are no longer the same person who began this journey. Every layer of doubt has been removed and replaced with a certainty solid as a rock. And that certainty is what makes your next step so secure. You walk toward what already belongs to you without hurry, with the cadence of someone who knows the final destination and understands that every present moment is an integral part of the victory that has already been won in the invisible. The stillness you feel is not an absence of life. It is the absolute presence of a peace that has become your new home. Every choice now is a reflection of that peace, an extension of the harmony you have finally reached with the parts of yourself that were scattered. You are whole. And because you are whole, you are ready to be the convergence point of everything that was promised for this season of your life, without effort, simply by being who you were always designed to be. Let the recognition seal where it has just landed. The act of typing these 3 words makes the witness permanent in your own life record. Type them and then come back to me, because our journey tonight is not yet finished. You need to understand that your search for productivity, approval, and external recognition was actually a form of protection you created while you didn't yet know who you were. But now, the mask has fallen. You no longer need to perform in order to be who you are. Your worth is not something you build, it is something you recognize. Feel the weight lifting off your shoulders now. Breathe deeply. Let this new clarity fill the space that was once occupied by anxiety. If something in this message confirmed what your spirit already knew, let your like be your wordless amen. Not as a metric, but as a deep agreement with the truth that was revealed here. There is someone in your immediate circle who needs to hear exactly this today. Someone who has been working much harder than everyone else, and who watches with a quiet heart as the door stays closed. Someone who carries an exhaustion that no one else can notice. A person who maintains the posture of someone who can hold up the world, but who inside is begging for a sign that all of this has a purpose. That person's face just came to your mind, didn't it? Send this to them, not as a recommendation, but as a delivery, just as this message was delivered to you, by name, by time, and by destiny. Before we close, type the words, "I am the chosen one," in the comments below. Not as a wish, not as a distant hope, as a confirmation. The invisible contract that formed between what is eternal and your attentive listening throughout this time is something you will carry for the rest of this new season. Type slowly. Let your fingers do what your spirit is already doing. You are committed, you are commissioned, you are sent. Right now, across the world, other souls who carry this same calling are being awakened, receiving this exact same recognition. You are part of a silent group that doesn't need to announce itself, and that's precisely why your presence is so real and so powerful. The movement you feel now is not an isolated beginning. It is your definitive entry into a current that will never stop. It is sealed.